listening? Damn.
Hey guys, I'm Courtney.
And I'm Josh.
Welcome to the Infinite Balance Podcast.
We'll navigate parenting, relationships, health, fitness, and so much more.
So get a drink, pull up a chair, and let's hang out.
Hey guys, what's going on?
Hello.
Welcome to episode 2. Thank you guys for all the love on episode 1. We fully appreciate it.
Woo woo.
So just a quick breakdown of how we're planning on doing the next couple episodes and where the podcast is going to end up going. The next couple episodes are just going to be sort of like a general discussion about just random things. Like today's topic is parenting. And we'll get into more specific things later on. We'll get into specific details, or if you guys have questions for us or want to talk to us about something or have a suggestion for the show, you can always let us know.
Yeah, we're going to, after we do kind of a general overview of us and our lives and the way we do things, we will start breaking it down to be specific to a general topic. And give you more insight and more information into that from our point of view. Mm-hmm.
So let's get right into it then. So today's topic is parenting.
Woo! Parenting!
There's a lot of different things you can obviously talk about. But we're going to talk about some of the things that are more specific and relevant to our experience in parenting. First and foremost with parenting, I think it's very important to remember that as parents, you are your children's first and foremost role models. Everything you do, they see, they interpret, they repeat, they imitate, what have you. So I think it's very important to remember that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I know that for us, we really try to make it so that our kids see what we want them to grow up to be. Mm-hmm. How we act and what we're showing them now is going to shape them for the rest of their lives.
Yep. So with that, usually the first question that me and Courtney get asked is if somebody's having issues with discipline at home, which can be a pretty touchy subject, obviously, in different things. Some people believe in things like spanking. Some people believe in just yelling. Some people believe in ignoring. There's so many different avenues that you can go through. And the truth is that each child is different. Every single child has a different way that you will have to address that. And that's not even just from our own experience with parenting. Me and Courtney used to work with a lot of kids with autism in a previous job that we had. And, we have a lot of background in education and things like that. So that's really helped in the parenting role for how to address issues with our kids.
And each one of our children, we address things differently. What works for our oldest isn't going to necessarily work for the other two. And that's something that we've really had to learn as we go. And that there's really no right or wrong way to parent or to discipline. That it ties in with what I just said, that what's right with one kid isn't going to be right with the other, but it doesn't mean that it's wrong. And how we parent might not be how you parent, and that doesn't make us wrong or you wrong. It's just everyone's different, and sometimes it's nice just kind of hearing other people's experiences so that it's just, you can kind of think, okay, well, this isn't working for me, but that works for them, so let me try it that way. And just to kind of get almost like a third-party perspective to kind of help you figure out those struggles that you're having.
Yeah, and there's so many different supports for parents. I've joined stay-at-home dad groups on Facebook. There's town moms of your various towns in the United States and things such as that. There's a lot of support for, hey, reaching out. Hey, what do you guys suggest? Have you ever experienced this? Have you experienced that? Whatever, So it really does tie into your personalities, what you want to get out of the children, how much energy you want to dedicate to something like this. And, the one thing I think and some of you may disagree, and this is fine. I personally used to believe in like more of an authoritarian role. What I say goes, and I do this because I said it. I used to believe in that spanking was a totally legitimate thing, and I wouldn't overuse it. It wasn't a thing that was common, anything like that. But I didn't see anything wrong. I saw it okay in emergency situations or what have you. But I've come to learn for myself that it doesn't really work for us. It's not a thing that we can rely on at all. And going into, talking about being your kids' role models, it's also spanking, yelling, all those things are really things you don't want to teach your kids to be doing. If I were to spank one of my kids, I can't then really be mad when they turn around and go to hit somebody else. Or if I'm screaming and yelling, I can't really be pissed off when they come back at me screaming and yelling, because now that's become their form of communication.
And that's not to say that there's not a time and a place for those things. And those might work for you. They just don't work for our children.
Right.
And so we don't want anybody to think that we're trying to say that any way is right or wrong. Mm-hmm. It just doesn't. This is just something that doesn't work for us.
So what has worked that we found is when we have a little bit of patience with our children, you have to kind of draw yourself back from a situation and be very mindful of what's going on. And the thing is that what I've noticed with children in general is that, they can be having an all-out meltdown, and the only thing they're really thinking of is that they're feeling frustrated or angry or upset. And I used to think, well, get over it and let's go talk about it, like that type of thing. But I have to constantly keep in mind that it's not always possible to just do that. Sometimes you really have to step outside of yourself and be with them in that moment. And maybe if you don't even understand, it's a learning moment for the both of you, mm-hmm. where they're learning to deal with their emotions. Maybe you can give them like some sort of thing. Maybe you can tell them to squeeze a pillow. Maybe you can tell them to do something like that. And then once the situation is under control, you talk to them about it. And don't let any outside influences, there was somebody when I was dropping Philip off at school the other day. There was a mom having an issue with her daughter. And she apologized to everybody in the line. And I just turned to her and I said, don't apologize. That's a situation where you can't worry about being judged. You can't worry about, you're not throwing your kid around. You're doing what you need to do, and you're handling the situation the best way that you can. And in that moment, it's about you and your kid and nobody else.
And I think that's something that a lot of people struggle with. I know at times I'll struggle with that, where if Michael or Philip, not really Mila because she's a baby.
She's adorable. All of our kids are.
But if Michael or Philip are kind of acting out and we're in the store, and even now I do sometimes, like I'll stop for half a second and be like, oh my God, everyone's looking at me because my kid is freaking out. Like, how am I going to handle this? And then I remove myself from that train of thought and be like, it's my child. I still have to handle it. They can't know that, oh, because we're not at home, I can do whatever I want, mm-hmm. And so that's something that I know I've really had to teach myself. And mm-hmm. to kind of touch on the point of, like, when kids are having a tantrum, I know Philip has more full blown out tantrums than Michael. Like the typical, screaming, crying, laying on the floor, kicking, screaming. And
you can see it in his face. He tries to be literally as dramatic as he can be.
Yeah, he looks to see if you're looking, and it's so hard to not laugh sometimes because he's just so adorable as he does it, and it's also so dramatically ridiculous. But when he's having the really serious, like, he is so mad, all he can do is cry and scream, and he just doesn't want anything. Something that I know I've gotten really good at with him is just kind of calling him over to me and hugging him and just letting him, like, cry and get it out and hug him and he just eventually, like, it will calm down. And sometimes it doesn't, and I usually know within, like, a few minutes if that's not going to work. But that's just something that I've learned with him that works, that with Michael doesn't necessarily work.
Mm-hmm.
Michael wants to squeeze, and I mean, he tries to not cry. So learning how to navigate the two of them and their emotions are two completely different games.
And we've both kind of specialized in working with, each other to help out our kids. For example, Courtney is a lot better with helping with Philip's emotions and his tantrums and things like that. And I think you've said before that, you relate with him a lot on the speech thing. And, you kind of understand where he's coming from because that was more of how you were as a kid.
Yeah, for side notes, Philip is speech delayed. And as a child, I was also speech delayed, and it affected me into early school years just because I had tubes in my ears twice. He luckily hasn't needed that, but I just relate to him on the frustration of not being able to communicate what the issue is.
And with Michael, Courtney has a harder time getting things with Michael because Michael's, a different mindset. I talked in the last episode about how I'm a super original person. I relate a lot to Michael like my dad did to me. And, I am a parent with ADD, ADHD, and OCD, a combination of the three. So I have a lot of my particulars, and I have a lot of things that I do. I have a lot of attention issues, and sometimes, I set the kids off by getting hyper and riled up. Although, you have to admit, because Courtney's smiling right now, you have to admit I'm good at also following that through. I don't just get them hyped up and let them do their own thing. I play hard.
Yeah, and if they are, like, too hyped up, you're good at reeling them back in.
Yeah, because that's something I'm aware of, and that's something that I know would upset me if somebody else did that. But whatever. So what Michael does is he has a lot of like anxious tics. He makes a lot of noises, and it amazes people because I can just hear a noise and be like, oh, that's the train sound from Polar Express. Or, some random sound that you wouldn't get. I'm like, oh, that's Mario jumping, like something like that.
Yeah, if we hear Michael making that sound.
Yeah, and Michael imitates those noises, and people don't know, what's going on. But also, Michael gets very angry, and that comes from, deep within myself as well. I used to have a lot of issues with anger that still pop up once in a while. And, it's just now that I know that and I've put that together, it's about being mindful in the moment when he's feeling that way. Like, I'm very stern with Michael, but also very direct. Michael's a very literal child. So when I am trying to help him through these things, I have to put myself back to the days when I was a child and getting so frustrated because I had so much energy I felt like I was going to explode. Or I didn't understand something. Nobody took the time. They just told me, go do this, and it's because I said to do it. I have to put myself back in that mindset of, well, as a child I was wondering why, and I was a very smart child like Michael is. I needed a reason. So I try to work with that, and I try to give Michael that reason. I can't think of an example right now, but, if he's mad at me for something and he tells me why he's mad at me, it took a long time to get to that stage of talking about his feelings and things like that.
Yeah.
But now when he tells me he feels a certain way, I try to relate that to what happened. Well, okay, you might be mad at me because I yelled at you, but do you understand why I yelled at you? Because you took the train from Philip, and that set Philip off, and this and that, and blah, blah, blah. And it doesn't have to be a big production, but it gives him that time to really think it through. And it might take 2 or 3 tries, but following that, it also helps him a lot. He talks himself through a lot of his emotions at this point. And he's 5 years old,
Yeah, he's very intense and advanced.
Yeah. What I found with Michael is it's best to be patient. And not just Michael, with all the kids, obviously. Michael takes me an extreme amount of patience because I have to pull myself out of the mode that I'm feeling with as intense feelings as he would have and really address what he's going through. Philip takes a different level of patience, which Courtney has more accurately pinpointed.
Yeah, so Philip, for me, it's easier for me to have patience with Philip than it is with Michael. And Philip and I, like, he's the mama's boy for sure. And he's my cuddle bug. When Michael is, when he wants to cuddle with me, it's just so, like, rewarding because he never wants that. But it definitely takes patience. Even though I have more patience with Philip, I have to remind myself that I understand where he's coming from and that I've been in his shoes and that I've been through what he goes through with the speech issues. And, you know, I just feel like I relate to his temperament a lot more than I do with Michael, because we did both have those speech issues where it's that frustration of not being able to say how you feel, because you just don't physically, emotionally, mentally have those words. And I also understand what it's like to be the second child. I know the frustrations that can come with that. And I also understand the, like, not giving an F attitude and it blowing up in your face. Because that was definitely me as a kid. Like, Philip will be like, all right, we're throwing the trains away. And he's like, okay. And he'll go to put them in the garbage.
And trains are one of his favorite things.
Yeah. And I was the same way as a kid. My parents would ask me, like, what should your punishment be? And my bike was my favorite thing. So I'd be like, all right, no bike for 2 weeks. And I still to this day do not think it was like a smart ass remark. I felt like it was me being, like, literal. Like, you're asking me what the punishment is. I don't want you to see that it's going to bother me, so I'm just going to play into it. And I feel like that's what Philip does with us when he's like, okay, let's throw him away. Like, he's going to put that tough exterior on of that it's not going to bother him.
Whereas with Michael, the type of child that I was, okay, my parents took my TV away or took my whatever away. I learned where they hid it, how to hook it up again, and how long I had to take everything back and put it away before they came home.
Oh, we're in for some fun teenage years earlier. But that's just kind of like how I relate to Philip with that. And I think because I was the same way he is, and he's got his own anger things, and I did too as a kid. I think every kid has their own issues with anger at some point and in some form, but I know when he gets truly upset about something, it's because all of those things he tried to hide bothered him. He's letting come right to him, and he can't put it, like, behind him anymore. And I was the same way. When something really got to me, it was like everything I felt exploded.
Yeah, it built up.
Yeah, it was a buildup. And I think that is why I do have the patience I have with him, because I want him to not feel like he has to suppress those feelings. And if he wants to fake cry for 5 minutes while he sits on my lap, like, hurry, it might not be the funnest thing, but I also know that's what he needs at that moment. And it's easier for me to let him have that moment.
Yeah. And what we're trying to say is it's going to be different with everybody with their own kids. The key is have some patience.
Yeah.
Remember where you were at as a kid. And, you know, I think it's an important thing to add in that just because you were raised a specific way does not mean it has to work for every following generation. I was raised in a house with, you know, belts and smacks and things like that, you know. And I didn't consider it like an abusive thing, but I've learned with my kids, nothing like that will work. What do I want to do with my mentality? I want to be there for my kids. I want to teach them how to manage their emotions, how to express themselves without taking it out violently or becoming extra angry or internalizing it, which is even worse, and having behaviors and all these issues. And I think that is what drives me and you in our parenting methods, is that we've been through so much with our experiences that we see like we can really make a difference. It doesn't have to be a repetitive process.
Yeah, and I think what you said is a good point too, of not letting them internalize and teaching them how to deal with their emotions at an early age. Because I think that's something that so many kids into adulthood and then through adulthood, they struggle with those two things a lot. And I know Michael does it now a little bit, where he tries to not show that he's upset. Like if something upsets him, he will fight crying. And something we've started doing with him that has been honestly a phenomenal tool for him is we have a feelings journal. And I do have to credit my sister with that. She bought him one, and it was her idea, and it's amazing. He absolutely loves it. And it's what I really like about that is, yes, he's not internalizing. He's learning how to express his emotions and manage them, because we then can have a conversation about his emotions and maybe, well, instead of doing this time, next time, why don't you try this?
Mm-hmm.
And I love that it gives us insights to his emotions. But I feel like with his anxieties that he does have, that it helps him kind of deal with those anxieties at an early age. And I know I definitely had a lot of anxieties. You know, I went through a period where it was 1 year after 9/11, and I went to Catholic school, and 9/11 being in New York, huge deal. And Catholic schools kind of do what they want. And we were able to watch all of 9/11. Literally, I watched the second plane hit. I watched both buildings collapse, and I was in 6th grade. So at the 7th grade, the year mark, I started having super bad anxiety, and we didn't really know why. So I want to be able to help my children with anxiety as early as I can, because my parents were so good about helping my sister and I with anxieties at a young age, that I, as an adult now, I have the tools I need to be able to deal with them. And I do still have anxieties, especially while parenting, that are harder to kind of control, for lack of a better word. But if we can set our children up now to not be afraid of their anxieties, and to not be afraid to talk mental health and not put the stigma behind it, then we're setting them up for a much stronger and better future, which is really the goal of parenting, is to set your kids up to be able to handle life, really.
Yep. And me being from like the ADD, ADHD, OCD background, you know, I understand like energy blowouts. I understand, you know, not being able to pay attention. I understand a lot of that stuff that like a typical kid would go through. But in my case, it was super magnified. And so I've used that even on, you know, the regular kids that I worked with. Well, what would draw my attention in at this point? How would I feel at this point if I was tired and had to sit in the middle of this room and listen to somebody talk and blah, blah, blah. So we really try to incorporate that in our everyday parenting. So speaking of anxiety, nothing could possibly be more anxiety ridden than your child going to the first official year of school amidst a global pandemic.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that me and Courtney had both struggled with a lot.
I think without even realizing, we were both struggling with it.
Yeah, and I think it was for different reasons.
Yeah.
You know, some of the same, obviously, looking out for their health and things like that. But for me in particular, like, I was more concerned about the social aspect. Well, you know, explaining to Michael, well, you know, it's just because of this virus that's going around that people have to wear masks, but it's not going to be forever, and it's not going to be, you know, so he doesn't think that that's the norm.
Where I know I had all confidence in our school district that they were doing everything they could to make sure these kids are safe. And I mean, from what I know so far, their numbers in our district are low, if any. But I think for me, I took more of the anxieties of oh my God, what if he does get sick? What if he brings it home? We do have someone in our house who has a very extremely weak immune system, who's already had COVID. And so I feel like I took on more of those anxieties of, well, is it safe to send him to school while still dealing with the dilemma of, is it safe? But I also know he needs it, and not really knowing where to go with that.
It's true. There's a lot of stuff to think about, but at times it's just, you just got to learn of what you can let go, or not let go, but you just go cautiously, and
you can control what you can control, and everything else, you just gotta make sure you're there every step of the way. And so if something starts to derail, you can just push it back on track, or do what you can.
Yep, I fully agree. So on that note, we're going to
speaking of anxieties, let's do lightning questions.
So, do you want to start this week off, or shall I?
I think I did last time.
All right. So, if you want to be like that.
Oh, I mean, I can. I don't know.
Okay.
Oh, they're back, the lightning sounds.
Question 1. What would you like our kids to know, looking back at this episode, if they were to hear it 25 years from now? What would you like them to know?
I would want our kids to know how much energy we put into them. And not in like a negative, like, oh my God, look how exhausted we were because we were parenting you, because that's not at all it. But I'd want them to see how much we focused on them, and how everything we really did was for them. And we put so much focus and energy into making sure that we were setting them up for a good life, and that we were giving them all the tools that we could. And we were just hoping and praying we weren't screwing them up.
That's a good answer. I like it. I think that's honestly the hope of every parent. Is that,
just don't screw them up.
That's the key thing to take away from anything that we ever talk about. It's all about experience, and most parents start with none of their own.
Question 1 for Josh. What was the biggest surprise challenge so far that you faced in parenting? Surprise challenge.
Having, honestly, having to explain boyhood to a bunch of women. Because, like, your whole family was so used to raising girls.
I don't have any brothers. My parents don't have sons. They're my cousins that we're, like, live physically closest to.
Yeah.
There's only one boy. So there's a lot of girls in our family.
So it's kind of, it's challenging in the way that it's like, it's kind of silly, but it's like, oh, why is he touching himself so much, or whatever, That's what boys do. Like, they got to readjust. They got to use the bathroom. They got to do this and that. None of it's really a huge deal, but it's just an interesting little. Yeah. I think it's kind of like a funny thing.
Yeah, no, it's like something so small that you wouldn't expect to be something you have to deal with, and maybe you don't have to deal with everyone, but when you come from a family of girls, I know the first time I had to change Michael's diaper, I looked at you like, what do? I don't know what I'm doing.
Yep.
If you guys could see the hand motions going with the lightning sounds.
Got to do it. What is your method of stress relief that never fails when it comes to parenting?
My method of stress release that never fails, honestly, is exercising. And I know that might sound like cheesy or corny, but if I can get a workout in, even if I can get it in before I'm stressed, that generally helps me out. Like, I know today was a rest day in my program, and I do feel like I probably should have gotten some sort of workout in, because I do feel like I wasn't able to handle my stress as better as if I had gotten a workout in. So even if I just gone for a walk, doing something physical, like moving my body, rest is great, but rest doesn't always relax me.
Right.
It doesn't take away my stress. It just kind of like puts it off. Where when I am active, I'm able to just kind of deal with the stress better, because endorphins.
I think that's a lot of people too. I think like me and you are definitely the same in that. And I've told you that before, even on days where I want to be lazy, if I'm going to be lazy, it puts me in just such a like weird mood that it doesn't feel right.
Yeah.
So I think that's important to know. Like, even if you do feel that not doing anything is, you know, good or whatever, like that's what a lot of people have problems with, being lazy. But when you realize, just do something, get up,
go for a walk,
do something, and you'll feel so much better and different.
Yeah, doing laps around your house can work wonders. There's a reason people pace while they're on the phone.
It's true. That's very true.
All right, question 2 for Josh. What so far has been your greatest parenting win?
When I learned to control my temper, that was my greatest parenting win. You know, my temper has affected me in so many different ways throughout my life. You know, I don't take it out on people. I don't hurt anybody. I don't do things like that. I internalize everything. And then, you know, I'll go off the handle about something, or I'll just shut down and go to play video games, or I used to drink and things like that. And, you know, it was just things that were really bad for me. So my biggest overall parenting win is really adjusting that and recalibrating that so that my kids didn't carry that on. You know,
that's a good one.
I like it.
Yeah.
It's working for me.
That's a good one.
All right. Last for Courtney.
Oh, I thought we were going to go without lightning sounds.
What is the craziest thing, quote unquote craziest thing, you've learned as a parent with anything?
The craziest thing I've learned as a parent.
It can be extreme. It could be silly.
You don't ever know what your day is going to look like.
That's true.
And you are going to say some phrases that you never thought you would ever have to put together. Like, no, the phone doesn't go in your underwear.
That's a good one.
Like, I never thought I would have to tell another human being that a phone does not go in their underwear. So I feel like not knowing where your day is ever going to look like, and...
Or take your food off of your feet.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I think really it's, you never know what you're going to have to say to them, because you don't know what they're ever going to do. And it's an adventure, and I love it, but it can get weird and it can get crazy. And so I think that's the craziest thing I've learned, is I just never know what I'm going to be saying to these tiny humans.
That's very true.
All right, Josh, ready for your last question? I'll take that as a yes. What has been your favorite part of parenting?
Every part of it. And I mean that, going back to the thing that I've been repeating this whole episode, is being mindful about everything. Like, even feeding Mila today, giving her bottle at one point, I just looked down and I had my phone in one hand, and she was holding her bottle, and I looked down and she looks up at me, and I just put my phone down.
Yeah.
And I was like, just sunk into her face, you know. And I do that with all the kids. There's times when, like, you know, I call it like a sparkle moment. Because there's times when, like, me and Michael will be playing games or talking about something, or me and Philip will be running around laughing, acting crazy or whatever. And just, I just being able to teach myself to be in that moment has been so rewarding. And hearing people like, oh, I wish this never ended. I wish I never, I wish I paid more attention. Like, I'm trying my hardest to make sure that that does not happen.
Yeah.
I know I'm going to regret missing some moments at some point, but I'm doing my damnedest to make sure that I commit to memory every single second that I can. And, that's been the most amazing thing is I've had that heads up from everybody to be aware of everything, of every single, even the bad moments, when you can take yourself out of that negative stuff that's going on and just like, wow, I really love this tiny human who's throwing themselves on the floor or tossing,
just punched me in the nose,
tossing their food across the kitchen or whatever. But god damn, I love the hell out of them right now. It's just such an amazing thing. It's exactly what you just said. You never know what you're capable of or what your day's gonna look like until you're a parent.
Yeah, I think it's so true. Then I don't think you know the feeling until you've been through it, but you really don't realize how much you can, in a split second, have so much love for someone until you have a child.
Mm-hmm.
And that's whether you have them yourselves, you adopt them, you whatever, until you have a child. It's like I literally never knew I could have that much love in my heart until I had children.
Mm-hmm.
And then you think, okay, well, I've got one, I can never love someone else this much. And then you have another and you're like, oh, that's possible.
Yeah.
And then you have another and you're like, whoa, my heart is going to explode. I didn't know this was possible. And I think just being a parent is a great feeling.
Yeah, definitely is. Well, guys, thank you for joining us for our second official episode.
Woo!
You're with us on a journey. We're going to get better at this. We're going to take calls. We're going to get more specific with our stories.
We're going to have guests.
Some of the episodes are going to be downers. Some are going to be uppers. We're going to talk about all kinds of different things, but it's all meant in the spirit of just helping everybody become better parents. And that includes us. Doing this, we're going to meet some people who have original ideas and interesting things to talk about. And, it's going to be an amazing experience for everybody involved. So I'm excited about this. Thank you guys again and again and again and again and again for joining us. And I got to tell you, we're excited to do this, man. We're really happy. We were toying with the idea of recording every month, every week, every 2 weeks. And then after the first episode and having such a positive reaction, me and Courtney were both like, every week. We need this. It's great.
Yeah, I think it's like super therapeutic for us too, in a way.
Yeah.
To just be able to talk, just us two, no interruptions, no kids, and just talk about things that we want to talk about and that you guys want to hear about. So make sure you let us know if there's any topic or anything that you want to hear us talk about. Let us know. Hit us up on Instagram. And
I'm going to be posting our link tree to in the podcast notes.
Yeah, so, check the show notes.
Yep, that'll link you to all of our socials, every platform that the podcast is on, and